Welcome back to The Explainer, where today we're tackling a massive philosophical dilemma, one with literal life-or-death stakes. We're diving deep into Plato's famous dialogue, the Crito.
So put yourself in this situation for a second. Imagine you've been unjustly sentenced to die, but your friend comes to you with a perfect escape plan. Do you take it? I mean, this isn't just some abstract thought experiment, right? This was the actual choice facing the philosopher Socrates back in Athens, 399 BCE. He'd been found guilty of impiety and corrupting the youth, and his execution was just around the corner.
So let's set the scene, because it's pretty dramatic. It's pre-dawn in this dingy Athenian prison cell. And who shows up? Socrates' wealthy and very loyal friend, Crito. And he has some incredibly urgent news.
Crito is, well, he's frantic. He basically tells Socrates, the ship is coming, the one that signals your execution is happening, maybe even tomorrow. But he's not there just to deliver bad news. He's got a plan. He says, look, everything is taken care of, the guards have been paid off, we've got powerful friends on the outside, and there's a safe house waiting for you in Thessaly. Basically, all Socrates has to do is get up and walk out. It's that simple.
Okay, so Crito doesn't just show up with a plan, he comes armed with a whole list of reasons, really practical, compelling arguments for why Socrates has to escape. And these aren't some lofty philosophical points, they're deeply personal.
And you can see his arguments here, and they're things any of us would probably think of. First, he's worried about his own reputation. He says, Socrates, if you die, people are going to think I was too cheap or too scared to save my own friend. Then he hits him with the big ones. You're helping your enemies get exactly what they want, and even worse, you're abandoning your own children. You have a duty to them. And finally, he kind of goes for the jugular, saying that to just sit there and die is, well, it's cowardice. He's basically begging him, come on, Socrates, think about your family, think about how this looks.
But this is Socrates we're talking about, right? So true to form, he kind of waves away all these concerns. Not because they're totally unimportant, but because in his mind, they are focused on the wrong thing entirely. He needs to completely change the question.
And this is the classic Socratic pivot. Crito is asking, is it practical to escape? But Socrates just flips the whole thing on its head. For him, all that stuff, the logistics, what people will think, even his own personal safety, that's all just noise. The only thing that really truly matters is one questioning. Is it just to escape? Is it the morally right thing to do? For Socrates, that's it. That's the only question worth asking.
So he immediately goes after Crito's biggest fear, public opinion. He's like, my dear Crito, why on earth should we care what the many think? His point is that the majority can be, and often is, completely wrong. Instead, we should only listen to two things, reason and the opinion of the wise, the people who actually understand justice.
And to make his point crystal clear, he uses this brilliant, simple analogy. He asks Crito, okay, imagine you wanted to get healthy and fit. Whose advice would you follow? The random opinions of a giant crowd of people, or the focused advice of a single expert trainer? The answer is obvious, right? You listen to the expert. And Socrates says, exactly. And just like you trust an expert for your body, you have to trust an expert, the one who knows about justice, for your soul.
And this really gets us to the absolute core of Socrates' entire philosophy. For him, the soul is infinitely more important than the body. To damage your soul by committing an unjust act, well, that's the worst possible harm you can do to yourself. It makes your life not even worth living. So yeah, he could save his body from execution, but what's the point if he has to destroy his soul to do it?
So to really dig into this question of whether escaping is just, Socrates does something really creative, really remarkable. He says to Crito, okay, let's imagine the laws of Athens, the state itself, could come to life and speak. What would they say to us as we're about to break out here? This is how he's going to build his ultimate argument.
And through this incredible imaginary conversation, Socrates lays out a really powerful idea, something we now call the social contract. I mean, this is huge. It's basically one of the first times this idea ever appears in Western thought. It's the foundation for guys like Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau centuries later.
So the laws start speaking, and they make this pretty startling claim. They basically say to Socrates, hold on a minute. We're not just some rules on a scroll. We're like your parents. We're the ones who sanctioned your parents' marriage, which means we basically gave you birth. We provided for your education. We created the entire society that raised you. Their point is that you owe your country an even greater debt and respect than you owe your own mother and father.
And this table here really breaks down that agreement, that contract. Think about it. For 70 years, Socrates was totally free to just pack up and leave Athens if he didn't like the laws. But he never did. So, by choosing to stay, he made an unspoken promise to live by its terms. And what were those terms? Pretty simple. Either obey the state's judgments or try to persuade the state that it's wrong. Well, he tried to persuade the court at his trial and he failed. So now, according to his own agreement, he has to obey.
So you see, escaping isn't just about breaking one law. According to the laws, it would make him thrice wrong. First, he'd be disobeying his parents, the state. Second, he'd be turning his back on his educators, again, the state. And third, he'd be breaking that lifelong agreement he willingly entered into. It's a profound betrayal on almost every level.
And really, underneath this whole idea of a social contract is Socrates' #1 unbreakable rule. You must never, ever do wrong intentionally. You don't even get to return an injury for an injury. Even if someone has wronged you, you don't have the right to wrong them back. And for Socrates, escaping would be a deliberate act of harm against the state. It would violate the single most important principle of his entire life.
And all of this leads Socrates, speaking through the voice of the laws, to his final and completely unwavering conclusion.
And here it is, the final, powerful message from the laws. The ultimate priority must be justice. Not survival, not family, not reputation. Justice. To act justly is the sole purpose of a good life. After all this, he turns to Crito, and he says something amazing. He says he can hear these arguments from the laws murmuring in his ears, almost like a religious mystic hearing music, and that this sound is so loud he can't hear anything else. His mind is made up. The debate is over. He's going to stay and face his death.
And so the dialogue leaves us with that very same question that Socrates faced. When doing the right thing, when pursuing justice costs you everything, what is the right place to pay? This isn't just some ancient history question, right? It confronts every whistleblower, every activist, really anyone who has to choose between what their conscience tells them is right and what the law demands. It forces all of us to ask what we truly value most, and it's a question that is just as powerful today as it was in that prison cell more than 2,000 years ago.